You are listening to Radio Ramadan 365 podcasts.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Sheikh Saab.
Wa alaikum salam, Sajjad Saab. How are you?
So we're covering your book, Zawia Discourses, Chapter 11, The Connections That Matter. People come into our life and people go. Can you explain why this is just part of life?
So I think our journey is a journey of clarifying. And what I mean by that is if you start early on a matter, if you sort of having an insight, but it's not well thought through and it's poorly articulated, you need to live a little bit and have a couple of experiences and keep on testing this idea until it becomes clear to you. Then the reality of what you're looking at there becomes clarified, And I actually think we're all like that. Every human being comes into the world with a puzzle. Something we're trying to kind of navigate to understand or clarify for ourselves. And actually the purpose of our life journey is that clarification. So that means that when we die, what we take across isn't so much our good actions, but actually it's our insight. It's our perception. It's the clarity of our perception of the truth. Now, in this journey of clarifying, it is clear that in some cases, an experience that you have is really necessary to have, and you have to have that exposure. And then as time goes on, you no longer need that exposure. I mean, that part of the puzzle has been sort of clarified for you. So if I think about my own life, my life journey, one of the key things in my life, and it's always been an element in my life, I think this is why I now today live in a Zawia, which is basically like a communal, sort of almost like a monastic setup. So how is it that I ended up here? Is because there was always a part to my curiosity. Maybe because I'm South African, but it's a part of my curiosity which is fundamentally political and somewhat left-leaning. I mean, like socialist ideology of the sort of 20th century, and that is part of the background noise of what interested me. And so in my early journey, it became very important to me to live this out in living with people. So I lived in student communes in fact, I lived in communal setups for up into my mid-20s, because it was part of that whole way of looking at things. And then at some point it was no longer necessary. And then we moved on. I moved into a house with my wife, and that experience then itself fructified, and I'm back living in like a communal setup. So what I'm suggesting is that as your curiosity pulls you through life, experiences get brought into your life that help you to unravel the particular puzzle you're busy working with, the thing you're trying to understand. And at some point, you've cracked that code, and it's no longer that interesting. And then that context goes away. And that's not just true for context, that's true for people. At some point in my life, it was let me try and think of an example now. At some point in my life, it was very important to me to identify with and be associated with other people who were also, I don't like the word revert, sort of convert Muslims, because I was one, you know. And so I built networks. We kind of got involved with dawah, and you're talking decades of life endeavor, you know.
Mm.
I became Muslim when I was 21. I'm now 67.
Sure.
At what point you stop being a convert? You know, do you understand what I'm trying to say? At some point, that part of your identity is no longer functional. I mean, it's no longer, you've worked this thing out now. You're not a nearly new one. You are one. You know, you're not like, you know, the water is dried. In Cape Town, they have this really unflattering description of people who are sort of converts. They call them watersnamps. Watersnamps means you're still wet behind the ears after your first whistle. Oh, you're a water Muslim, you know, still watersnamp. So, but at some point, the water dries. I mean, it's just how it is, because that's the nature of how things happen. You're no longer watersnamps, whether you'd like to be one or not. So you perforce I was involved with a group of people, with a circle of people in a particular era, with particular consciousness, particular proclivities and orientations, and that just over a period of time became less significant. And now I'm surprised when somebody refers to me as a convert, you know, as a, or whatever, revert. Yeah. I mean, it's a surprising thing, because, you know, I have 2 generations of born Muslims that have come from me. So, you know, I mean, in that sense, I don't think you can refer to me as a convert or as a revert anymore. As you move on, bits of your identity changes, and as bits of your identity change, new people come in, new connections are made, and the old ones are just no longer that interesting. And the things that held us in conversation are no longer that interesting. You know, like, I mean, in the early days of the Marabitun, you know, it was kind of like how impressed we were as new Muslims by the traditional Muslim community of South Africa, who would never accept us as a sort of as kind of equals, or sort of grant us our Islamic majority, because, you know, like as adulthood, because we will always stay children in there. That whole narrative is like completely gone. If somebody were to talk to me like that now, I would just say, what on earth are you talking about? I mean, so the people that I had those conversations with, they've moved on, I've moved on. We don't find each other interesting. The conversation no longer needs to happen, because it's no longer part of the agenda. There's something else that's the agenda now, you know. So I think it's natural that people come into our life and people go from our life. And as we're busy working through this puzzle of our lives.
So when people talk about baggage, how does that relate to this idea? Should we care about people who've been estranged? Example, like relatives we've fallen out with.
So I know people who I might not have seen for decades. And when I see them again, I'm happy to see them. Our lives have moved on. You know, we no longer find each other that interesting. We're pursuing different things in our lives. It's kind of like, but there's no ill feeling. There's no rancor. There's no accusation, which means we have well and truly moved on. I mean, I left that person in the past, happily. So happy when I see him, I can wave at him across the sort of, decades of past of time, and there's no ill feeling. But when that person, when there's ill feeling, when I've moved away from this thing, and I will never speak to that person again. I've closed that door, and you can hear in the tone of my voice that I have a great sense of rancor about what happened to me, and then in fact you haven't moved on.
Mm.
Then that event is still very much alive in you, and the person you have a beef with, they are not past. They are still here. So the work that then you need to do is the work which is about forgiveness, forgoing the accusation, so that you can then allow the person to go on their merry way and be in the past. Yeah. In fact, you used the word baggage. And baggage is a very interesting word, because baggage is saying, I'm carrying it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. By definition, that's what you do with baggage. You carry it with you. I mean, so what do you need to do to stop carrying the thing with you? So that if you were to bump into the person on the train, it would be a cheerful greeting. Nice to see you again. And when you get off the train, they're as forgotten as any other person that was on the train. It's gone. No, that's what you must get. Not, God is on the same carriage as me, I'm going to walk to the next carriage.
Power politics always seems to be about developing and maintaining alliances. Even the TV dramas people watch for episodes seem to be about this. It seems to be a very human thing to need to do. Are you saying it's futile?
Developing alliances.
Mm. Or developing and maintaining alliances?
Well, I mean, in the fullness of time, all human endeavor is futile. I mean, that's وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. So that is true. But you see, there's two kinds of people. Or let me reframe this. There's two ways in which I can be connected with people. The one is that I find them genuinely interesting. And I'm sincerely concerned about them and their well-being. And that when I call that person, I'm calling that person in order to find out how they are. Because I'm just that kind of person. Now, my wife is like that. My wife has the most amazing capacity to cultivate relationships with people, because she finds people, she genuinely finds them interesting. And she can strike up the conversation. Sometimes I'm amazed at her. She strike up a conversation with somebody in the train, and within 5 minutes, they're like old mates. It just has that capacity. Then you get another way in which people call people, and it is because they're busy maintaining the alliance. Now, these are not the same. I mean, if you're busy deliberately making contact with people and maintaining alliances, then the thing that you're busy developing, you will experience as burdensome over a period of time. And you will experience the people involved as burdensome. Because you're not speaking to the person because you're interested in them. You're speaking to them out of a sense of obligation because I've got to maintain this relationship. And there's a difference between interest and doing the thing because I really want to, and obligation and doing the thing because I have to. Now this thing in the fullness of time is this latter one. You're deliberately setting out to develop the alliances, and that will disappoint you. It's designed to disappoint you. It's designed to disappoint you because of the way in which your intent works by it. Allah deliberately creates the world in such a way that our conditional motive comes back to bite us. If the one person that you thought you've done enough so that they will never disappoint you is the one person who will disappoint you. The one person that you've been so immensely generous with, you think, well, because I've been generous with this person, they'll always have a good opinion of me. That's the one person who will backbite you. The investments that you make in relationships, in order to have those investments reciprocated, those investments will be brought to failure. Their dividend will be dust and ashes. That is how it works. I mean, challenge me if I'm wrong. Look back at your own life experience. Look at the things that when you went out and deliberately went and cultivated people and were nice with them with the understanding that they'll be nice back to you, those are the things that invariably disappointed you. Invariably turned out to be a cup of ash in your mouth. But it's the instances where you were just genuinely interested in the person. And there was it was just a delight seeing them. Those are the things that remain. The things that weren't done in order to remain will be the ones that remain. And the ones that were done in order to create something over time are the things that will come to disappoint you.
When you say that, Shaykh, I look back in my own life, and it's so true. It's so true where you've been cultivating those relationships, whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, work associates, whatever it is. And you're thinking, I'm cultivating this relationship for a long term. Even in marriage as well. Even in marriage, where you cultivate, particularly, over 20, 25 years, you cultivate those relationships. You build upon the extended family from this side, from the mother's side, from the father's side, and vice versa. And how it comes crashing down when that finishes.
No,
even with children. Even with children. So, alhamdulillah. Is there anything else you want to say with regards to that, Shaykh?
No, I don't think so. I think that's
okay. Great. It's a good point to conclude on chapter 11.